Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. We got a new national champion, y'all. I'm finally out of the bathroom throwing my guts up. We got some NBA to get to. Another head coach gets fired with 3 games left in the season. What is going on? So here to break it down with me is the one and only, the world-renowned, world-famous. He was born in Texas, raised in VA, and he comes to you via the Garden State. He wants you to know 2 things. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
And Jersey's better off without the Nets anyway. He is Mr. Logical. And I am your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Just in case you did not know, I do believe in Joe Hendry. Just in case you do not know, I do have a liquid death in my hand. So like, review, subscribe, rate, share, do all the free things, do all the good things. So, Mr. Logical.
I'm listening.
I already said it. I've been sick all day. Those dirty, filthy crocodiles down in Gainesville are the new reigning national champion of the college basketball world. That was a weird game that I watched last night, Mr. Logical. It was a weird game.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Couple of things. I like the physicality of the game. I think there needs to be a few tweaks to men's college basketball, to help with the flow. I think sometimes those games get stagnant and then it just gets choppy and it's very rough down the stretch, even for your top teams. We talked about it with Duke and how they finished the game against Houston. Houston subsequently had a very similar finish to their game, like caused by their defense on Duke, and Florida did to them. There's always controversy. There's always, we look back, 2020 hindsight. I want to give Ava credit for this. She sent this to me last night. This was her assessment of the game. She was a basketball star growing up here in Jersey, softball athlete, really into sports. And she says something, I'm going to say it clear. She's like, dumbass refs called 18 fouls in the first 9 minutes of the second half. Everything from there, fit that tone. And it's like, I believe they interrupted the flow of the game because the first half, they only called 7. And 2 or 3 of those were really early in the game in the first half. So pretty much 19 minutes of the first half, they called 4 fouls. Even those, a couple of those I didn't really like. So I think sometimes the refs calling the foul just stops the flow. I think there's not, for a game to be 65 to 63 final with, these teams are your best 2 teams in the country and you barely go over 120 points. It just seems like there has to be something that they fix. And maybe we were talking about this earlier. It's a lot of teams. So the talent isn't, it's not a lot of scores on a lot of teams. And I think coaches kind of recruit. They have a couple of guys on the floor for Houston that offensively didn't even look at the basket. They were just out there to set screens and try to rebound. I think they kicked the ball out too much. These guys are getting rebounds 6'9", 6'10", 6'8". Put it back up. Get fouled, go to the free throw line. Because we talked about the fouls.
Free throws.
I mean, hell, you were going to get so many. They were in the bonus at 14 and a half minutes. They had 14 minutes and 37 seconds when they were shooting 1-and-1. Because of all the foul calls. I think they had Florida on the ropes then. And I know Houston, they talked about in the pregame that they want to slow the game down. They want to get extra possessions. It's get points. Don't kick it back out. When you get the offensive rebound, head fake, go back up. It's a scramble right there. You're likely to get a foul. And you don't need to be that good offensively to jump straight up and dunk it. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like their offensive philosophy led to them kind of getting stagnant
So there was a couple of things in this game, right? So there's that old saying, right? You lose them how you got them. Like they talk, that's usually referred to, you met this girl that left her husband for you, so now she gonna leave you for somebody else. So Houston lost that game the way that they stole it from Duke. The second thing is, every time I try to say sports is not rigged, something happens that people come back to me and say, do you think it's rigged now? And so before I even go any further, I'm not trying to shit on Florida. Congratulations to the Gators for winning the title. Congratulations to Todd Golden, the youngest coach to win a national title since Jimmy Valvano. The only problem with that is they both beat Houston. So Houston's got this Oiler thing going on. Close but no cigar. Foslama Jamma couldn't even get it done. Yeah. But when I look at this game, it was a tale of two halves. The first half was more like a let's feel it out. You can rough each other up, establish how you want to play. The second half was, no, we had enough of that. Y'all gonna play like this. There was a lot of tic-tac going on, and it takes away from what Houston did. I'm not talking about losing the game, but the defense that they played on Will Clayton. He didn't even score until 14 minutes left in the second half, and that was a free throw. He didn't even hit his first shot until about 7.5 minutes left in the game. But we can't even talk about that because of these refs. JoJo Tugler in foul trouble. Jawan Robertson, I know you were talking about, go up for the rebound, get these free throws. Jawan Roberts, 62.5% free throw shooter. He hit
knocked down 2 against Duke.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. He hit the 2 against Duke.
On the same rim.
And then you know what he did? He came back to the mean. What I'm saying? It evened out because he wasn't supposed to do that. Speaking of Duke, real quick. Hey, I tried to put the warnings out there. We've seen this with UNLV. We've seen this with the Fab Five. We've seen this with 38-0 Kentucky. The best team just doesn't tend to win a lot. It's a one-game elimination.
That leads me to like one of my points, and this is something that I've been thinking about. It's something I think about for like 2 years. My son last year, high school, would have a freshman team. Well, JV varsity, they play in the big gym. The freshman team played in the smaller gym. Our philosophy was like they play like a 2-3 zone, and they would trap at the top of the zone. It was very simple. It was like if they saw a point guard was kind of nervous or shaky with the ball, they would just run the 2 guards at him from the top and get deflections to get runouts. Court was small. Mm-hmm. We played another school, and the freshman game was on the full court. So they couldn't quite do the same thing because these guys, and the other team was good, but they were spacing the floor. They were doing like the weave passes way out beyond the 3-point line, creating space. For some reason, college basketball, that 20-foot 3-point line, 19 in the corners, everybody plays right up on it. It's like, yo, you can't get anything going if you're just letting the zone sit right on top of the 3-point line. Like, so set your offense up at 24 feet. Just set it up 24, 25 feet. You can still run the same pick and roll action. You can still run the same weave action. You can still get your big to the flash of the free throw line and make passes from there. But what happens is you condense everything, and it's easy for people to get their hands on the ball. We talk about Duke in the last minute. Duke had all 4 of the guys trying to catch the inbound on this side of half court, which gave Houston's all 5 defenders 10 hands to pass through. Like, just run 2 guys on the other side. Just run 2 guys on the other side of half court.
Sounds like coaching to me.
2 defenders have to go with them, and then you can get an easier bounce pass in. The inbounder breaks in. Cooper Flag's a good passer. He gets the ball to Sion. I want to make his name right. Sion. So he gets a better opportunity to bounce the ball to Cooper Flag, but instead they had everybody on this side of the half court. Cooper Flag's in the middle, so like some dude that wasn't even guarding Cooper Flag just got his hand up. Ball got deflected. So it's like Houston did the same thing to themselves. It's like that pick and roll action you had at the end of the game, you didn't need that, like all those passes. Like, listen, who's going to shoot this ball? Run, get him off 2 screens and get him an open look. That pass and everything else in the closeout was just it literally threw off the whole play, and that's when he jumped and had to drop the ball. It's like sometimes you just do too much. The game where they won, where the inbounder stepped back in and got the pass, that was a perfectly designed play. It was simple. It was like you use motion to create space. They were trying to use the ball to create space, and Florida was like, "Oh, you're playing for the three." Now they knew because they had like 17 seconds when they got the ball. They knew at 12, oh, these guys are not even trying to shoot a two. So now all we gotta do is guard 3-point line. And they just were running guys at them. So it was like,
yeah.
I just think like if you use your spacing better throughout the game, you'll be able to work different options to where when it comes down to the end of the game, they don't know this is the guy they're going to because this is all they've done all game long.
Which is crazy because LJ Cryer and Emmanuel Sharp combined 9 for 29. Elijah Martin and Will Clayton combined 5 of 21. So this game was all about the role players. We talked about Alex Condon, came in with some big baskets out of the timeouts. Like Golden was dialing out. He was dialing up those out of timeout plays, like going over the top because Houston couldn't front you because they're going to foul you. And their big men had 4 fouls. So they took advantage of that and used that some variance of that play.
It was spacing. They were literally spacing the floor and getting number 10. What was his name? The white guy with the mullet for Florida.
Not Hulk. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, but he was just like literally making his move, coming right down the paint, especially because Houston was shooting a lot of threes
and not making them.
Your Cryer and the other guard
Sharp
shoot 91 and 87% from the free throw line.
Go to the basket.
You have 14 minutes of free throws. I'm pick and rolling to death, and I'm getting the big Condon, who already had a couple of cheap fouls in the first half. I'm pretty sure he got a couple more in the second half, at least 3. I'm bringing his man out, and we're gonna run this high pick and roll and make them switch this big onto my guard.
Yeah, I thought
into his chest.
That was going to cause trouble too.
The technical foul.
Yeah, I thought that was going to cause trouble for Florida too.
Well, it would have if Houston just would have recognized that. Like, I know I always sit in the stands, and my son always gets on me because I'm like, it's like I may not have played this game at the level you played it. Or even like, as I talk about it with lacrosse, I'm like, I can see what this team is doing that's successful and where they're coming up short, and what you guys are doing that's successful and where you're coming up short. Like that's easy. That's just basic organizational management and understanding the process of what's going on in front of you. And like, this team is doing this thing that's working, and you are not you're not shooting a jumper well, and you're in a football stadium, far backdrop. They talk about it all the time. Is like getting those bearings, because I believe a lot of national championship games are very low scoring. Like the one that they played in like the NRX Stadium in Houston. I remember that game was notable. It was like very low. I remember Duke Butler was very low. It's like you're playing these basketball games in the middle of these football arenas. You're not gonna, if you're off, you're gonna be off the whole game. If you're on, you're on. But if you're not on by 12 minutes left in the second half, get to the hoop.
It ain't coming.
Get to the free throw line. Make it easier on yourself, especially when they had, like I said, I harp on this, they had opportunity to shoot free throws for 14 whole minutes.
Yeah, that game should have went 4 hours.
They should have shot 20 free throws in the second half.
That should have been a 4-hour game. They should have been literally a free throw contest at that point.
Yeah, I'm going to the basket for the rest of the game.
And props to Kelvin Sampson, though. You know what I mean? He got this team to the championship game. They're in the Big 12 now. So I can't call him a mid-major anymore. But now he's 69 years old. His son is the coach in waiting. I don't know how many more he got in there, but I do know that as long as
his face looked like that question, but in a different tone.
Right.
His face was like, did that just happen? Did I call the wrong play?
Especially the Duke game, like he just looked so fed up.
Yeah, but at the end of that game, when the dude he was better off trying to throw the ball off the guy's leg before he let it go.
Yeah. And so from this, I did enjoy the game. The ending left a lot to be desired. The 3-point shot. I know that Emmanuel Sharp knew he wasn't getting that shot off. And I know, especially for the fact that all of his shots are line drives, he really knew he wasn't getting that shot off.
Yeah. It was great. It was great defense.
It was great defense, but he couldn't touch it. After he let it go, he couldn't touch it.
I thought once it bounced, you could touch it. I guess maybe in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I know it's always one of those weird rules. I remember in pickup games,
I know there was a Duke player, I believe, that did something similar, but he traveled when he did it. But they left a lot to be desired. Auburn left a lot.
Honestly, he was better off just grabbing it and taking a travel call.
Yeah,
and fouling on the inbound.
Right, because you were only down. Yeah,
you were down. Instead of saving that 7 seconds, he was better off either letting Condit grab it and foul him immediately, or grab himself.
Yeah, and I know that Auburn was a part of this Final Four as well, and Janai Broome did not leave on the best terms. We talked about his injury. He came out hot in the first half and didn't do very much in the second half. So you just got to tip your cap to Florida. They did what they had to do to win. When it wasn't falling for Clayton last night, Will Richard took over. So, and that was my question going into the Final Four was, if Clayton isn't scoring, then who's going to do it? Because he was scoring 26% of their points during the NCAA tournament. So
I thought that was going to be a death of Florida too, because as I was watching the game and I saw he wasn't scoring, and the halftime was 31-28, and their best scorer hadn't scored a single point. I was like, this is good. But then when they got the double-digit lead in the second half, I was like, okay, cool.
And that's the crazy part. Houston wasn't turning the ball over. That was the other part of it. So I thought Houston was going to survive just because they were protecting the ball. But then they had 4 turnovers in the last minute and a half, and they only had 5 prior to that. So,
you could tell, and I felt like this way with the women's college basketball, because we got to talk about them too. Shout out to UConn. I turned the game on. It was 50-39 UConn.
I didn't see no basketball. I saw demolitions.
Like 3 minutes left in the third, and then all of a sudden, boom bop, bing bop, boom bop, bam, and UConn's up 30.
Yeah, somebody asked me a question and I didn't know what to say. They said, and I'm about to feel so wrong for even saying this out loud because I love me some Dawn Staley. But the question was, Dawn actually be coaching, or they just got a lot of great players?
She's coaching.
I think she's coaching too.
She's absolutely coaching. Especially, you got to keep in mind, this is a one and done tournament. The women's teams tend to be better for, I think, a couple of reasons. One, there's not that many women's programs that you can attend as a player and also get nationwide coverage, recognition. So I think
Haley had to transfer twice, huh?
but she kept getting. She with the Louisville. But she was already kind of like, she had like a brand for herself coming out of high school. But like, you can go to Houston as a man and get, a lot of attention. You go to Arizona State, Arizona, you can go to any school pretty much anywhere. And if people feel like that team has a shot, Gonzaga, but it's not a lot of women basketball players that are going to Gonzaga to get national coverage. So that gives South Carolina opportunity. They just got another transfer in who was leading
from Florida State, leading the nation in scoring.
She went to South Carolina. So I think that's the difference. And the women stayed there for 3 years before they're draft eligible. Like I said, I think the top tier programs, you got to coach because people are coming. Like Notre Dame will get your player in the transfer portal if you're not coaching them right. So Dawn Staley is definitely doing a job coaching. It's just, like I said, Gino said in that one interview, we got Diana, they don't. Yesterday they had FUD, or the other day they had FUD, and South Carolina didn't have the answer.
Right. And to your point, UConn had Paige. You know, so they had FUD. You know, like and you know the craziest part about this though is not even the fact that UConn beat South Carolina this way. The surprising part for me was that this is their first national title in 9 years.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Yeah, that's nuts. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? And they have the most all time.
He has 12. And he's had national.
Yeah, he's got all of it. He's got all their titles.
Yeah, and then and that's the thing. They've been in national championship games and in Final Fours. So realistically, the ball bounces another way every couple of possessions. He could be at 16.
Yeah. I mean,
so
hopefully
like just winning 5 out of the last 10, which is realistic. I mean, he's been in, like they were in the championship game a lot.
Hopefully we see Tennessee back at some point. It's been a while, you know. But you know, as I was looking at it, you know, I don't hear all those people out there talking about how much better the women's tournament was this year, you know, because all I saw was blowouts, you know what I mean, to include UConn over UCLA and, you know, South Carolina, you know, I mean, South Carolina had a close game with Maryland, but, you know, but for the most part, it was blowouts. And then, of course, unfortunately, Juju got hurt. So that took a lot away from the tournament as well. But
yeah, the women's tournament needs more, not more, but they need star power along with intrigue, because you already know one or two from every region probably gonna make the Final Four. Maybe you get a 3, but like Iowa was a 3, I believe, one year. I think LSU was a 3 one year. They had 3 losses. I'm like, how are they 3? Like they were number 3 seed. I think they were like 35-3 on the year. Or something.
Because all these teams that are at the top don't lose. You know,
yeah, they were like I think South Carolina was undefeated that year. I believe Iowa had like 1 or 2 losses. I believe Iowa was a 3. So it's like, but you have 1 seed records, and they just are 1, 2, or 3 seeds in the tournament because that's the way it plays out. So those teams tend to trickle down and make it down to the road to the Final Four. I think that's the difference. But they also need the star power to go with. I think Caitlin, back-to-back years with Angel Reese, star power. I think that was enough to drive it. And I mean, listen, we can all wear our blinders, but the fact that one girl was black with this kind of personality and the other girl was white with this, Midwestern woe is me, I'm just out here leading my team, was also a bunch of like Midwestern white girls versus these hood girls from LSU,
right?
Yada yada yada. All of that, we need that. It's like we need that for entertainment. It's not necessarily like how you should judge them overall, but it is an entertainment element that's just organically built in to our same way with boxing. We talk about it with boxing too. So yeah.
Well, Caitlin's about to get her rival now because Paige is coming to the WNBA. They got a long history, friendship, and everything. But we looked at Angel Reese because of what happened in college. We looked at them as that Bird Magic combination. We'll see if the WNBA
average 30 this year.
Oh, she probably will. And she's going to be on. And
I
guess
might
what?
check out the game.
And guess what? She's going to be on TV 41 times so you can see it.
Yep. I might get her shoes.
But moving on, we got a race, y'all. We got a race over in the West. As we come down the stretch, there are 6 teams. I said 6 that could still end up in the play-in. So let's look at some standings real quick, Mr. Logical.
Yep, I'm gonna.
And this is coming into tonight. So I'll update as we're talking here. So obviously OKC is the 1 seed. Looks like Houston is pretty much locked into the 3rd seed now. The 2nd seed now that the Lakers lost tonight. So the Lakers are actually 48-31. This hasn't updated yet. So, so Houston's got 3 games left. Houston's the 2 seed. Now you go Lakers, Nuggets, Grizzlies, Timberwolves, Warriors, and Clippers, and it's a mess. Memphis won tonight, so they jump ahead.
Wonderful mess.
Yeah, so Memphis jumps ahead of Denver. They won tonight. You got Minnesota won tonight. Minnesota's got the tiebreaker over Denver because they got 6 straight wins over them going back to last season. Then you got the Clippers and the Warriors down here at 7 and 8. Warriors are playing right now, likely to beat the Suns. So when we wake up tomorrow, you're gonna have
be different.
Yeah, you're gonna have Memphis at 48-32. Denver and Golden State are likely to be 47 and 32. Clippers aren't playing tonight. And then Minnesota lost, so they're 46 and 33. So my first question, Mr. Logical.
Listening.
Which of these two teams end up in the play-in?
Scroll down for me. Because right now all I can see is the Warriors on my screen.
Yeah, that's it. The Kings and Mavericks can't,
Yeah. Okay. God, this is tough. Without looking at the schedule, looking at the last 10. This might be kind of chalk, but I'm gonna go with 4 and 5. I think 4 and 5 Nuggets Grizzlies. I think they could end up 7-8.
Okay.
I'm looking at their last 10, 3 and 7 in their last 10, 4 and 6 in their last 10. Both, I mean, it's kind of low hanging fruit. I know it's kind of a chalk pick, but both of them just fired their coach. Both teams fired their coach. One fired the coach and the GM. The other team's star players throwing grenades into the crowd instead of shooting guns now. So it just seems like a lack of focus. It's like a lack of focus in Memphis, or they're too focused on like things that aren't winning basketball. Like how many touches you get when you're the 5th seed in the Western Conference that's this tough with the star power that's in the Western Conference shouldn't be your main concern. That shouldn't be a problem that's brought up when you're 14 games above 500, 15 games above 500. And the star player who wants to get touches is still getting a lot of media coverage. He has them. Like you have everything you really need as a basketball player. Now go get wins. Like everything else is already padding out. Like Jokic, he has everything. He has the chips. He has the MVPs. He has a shoe deal. He plays with the freedom that he wants. So for the team to fire the coach is like now you're just kind of interrupting that. So I think those two dynamics,
I didn't even know
coupled with
Jokic
the
had a
rumor
shoe.
that they weren't having any fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that dynamic brings it down.
Well, we do have Memphis and Minnesota playing on Thursday. So, so that should be fun. We got Luka going to Dallas tomorrow. So, I think the Lakers will be good, though. I don't think they're going to fall. I think they'll stay at 3. I'm looking at Denver and the Clippers. So I think that Golden State is going to move up. They got the Suns right now, so they'll win that game. But the Warriors are something like 20 and 3 since the Jimmy Butler trade. And by the way, the Warriors are up by 26 right now. They closed the season with the Spurs and the Blazers. So I think the Warriors win out.
Yeah. So without looking at the schedule, I just you're the stats schedule. You got to check the schedule. I mean, that's your thing. I'm more of like the organizational mental state.
Well, Minnesota could find themselves there if they lose to Memphis on Thursday. But the good news for Minnesota is that their other 2 games are against the Nets and the Jazz. So
and the Jazz are trying to get Cooper Flag.
Right. So yeah. So I think that's where we are. For me, it's going to be Denver and the Clippers, and not even anything against the Clippers. It's just somebody just has to be there, because I think the Clippers are one of those teams, Mr. Logical always laughs when I say this, the Clippers are semi-built for the playoffs. The only thing is they just got to keep their players healthy. And that's the problem, is that they're relying on too many dudes that are not healthy. So, obviously Kawhi Leonard goes without saying, saying they went and got Ben Simmons, so now you're relying on Ben Simmons to be healthy.
I just like their coach.
I love the coach too, even though he got fired once upon a time ago.
Yeah, I think the coach keeps it. I think the coach keeps them in line. Like I said, and just looking at their last 10 games, being 8-2 in the last 10, and smelling, because we're going to talk about it here next.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But hey, let's play a quick game real quick.
It has to be something that these guys think about. But hold on real quick. I want to do a quick shout out. So we get a lot of we change a lot of information in our group chat. Shout out to the Hotbox. But I saw this Twitter post from a guy, Will. He had a check mark, but his name is at Bias Houston. And I'm just gonna read off what it said. It's like I turned into first take since it went live this morning at 9 a.m. Eagerly waiting for the announcers to cover the number 2 seed in the West that beat both the Thunder and the Warriors this weekend. After 3 full segments discussing LeBron and the Lakers, they finally got to the Rockets. Then I speak about the Rockets. The entire segment was spent discussing Draymond's control, his emotions in the playoffs. The cherry on top is immediately after not discussing my team, they went right back to another segment talking about the Lakers. So I reached out to this guy on Twitter. It's like, yo, I think I got a show you should watch because we don't really have like those. We pride ourselves on just being a wide range of topics and just really talking about every team. So I'm going to talk about Houston. They're young and they're old at the same time. And that was like a critique I had them for all last season. Like, okay, what are you doing? It seems like you have a lot of players in the same position. But Udoka,
the real deal.
One team, like, you got OKC, they're 50 games above 500. They should sweep the major awards. 6-man, maybe defensive player of the year if they have a guy like maybe Lou Dort is really in there.
Lou Dort nominated.
Coach of the year, MVP. Like when you're 50 games above 500, everybody associated with those 50 wins, the executive of the year, cheerleading squad of the year, cleanup crew of the year, best concession stand, all that stuff. Everybody needs to be considered when you are 50 games above 500 and your team can't even rent cars.
Best security.
Realistically, can't rent cars. Houston's a lot like that with a couple of old heads, that play that role. So they're young, and people talk about the youth in the NBA and how that can hurt you in the playoffs. Listen, running out and getting the open layup is running out and getting the open layup. I don't care if it's January or June. So if you can defend, get steals, get stops, force tough shots against older teams, because the Clippers aren't going to chase you down. Kawhi Leonard is not chasing Jalen Green down. Just not happening. It's just not happening. He's going to get his highlight dunk. The crowd in Houston is going to go crazy. So I just want to, just focus on like some of these other teams. Like I said, he's a fan. He's like, yo, this is number 2 team in the West. Like, so you got number 1 and 2, probably 2 youngest teams in basketball. Maybe Detroit might be in that range, but Detroit's having a great year as well.
Well, see, Houston has 3 things that the rest of the teams in the West don't have. They have Ime Udoka, who is a head coach that made the finals. So the Warriors got that, but most of the other teams, Denver doesn't have it now.
Correct.
Lakers still got a first-year coach. He's doing great. Still a first-year coach. They got Amen Thompson, who, if ESPN did pay attention to the Houston Rockets, might be in this Defensive Player of the Year award race. They got Steven Adams. He's finally healthy. And, oh, by the way, they found a way to play Adams and Şengün on the floor at the same time. So they got a version of the Twin Towers going on. But you don't have to worry about both of them scoring, but you got to worry about both of them on the boards. And Şengün can take you off the dribble too.
And any team that can't figure that out needs to slap themselves. Minnesota not being able to how to figure out to get the scoring big and the rebounding big on the floor at the same time. It's like, what? It's like just putting gas in your car. Like, it's just put it in and watch it go. Like, what are you trying to figure out?
And that's the thing about it, is that the Rockets have a lot. Because as much as we talk about the Rockets youth, because I've been hearing all these shows talk about, the Rockets are the team that everybody wants to play. No, they are not. You know what I mean? Because guess what? They got NBA champion Fred VanVleet, they got, Dylan Brooks, who, if nothing else, will hump you, if things getting uncomfortable, he'll just hump you.
He will savagely molest you in the post.
Yes. And he pokes bears. And then, you know what I mean? You got Jalen Green. So you got your young scorer, that can get you 35 on a night. You got Amen, who's that young Kawhi, but he has that energy, so he can high fly on you as well. Yeah. I've seen plays where, like, literally he's at the free throw line. He'll, like, hit a pass, somebody will catch it, go up for the layup, and he comes and blocks the person that's going up for the layup after he deflected it already. You know, so the Rockets have Jabari Smith who can spread the floor. So I don't think that a lot of these teams want to play the Rockets. So that was actually the next game that I was going to have us play before we get on to the Mike Malone thing. So if you're the Rockets, what team don't you want to play?
I'm taking anybody.
Just anybody.
Anybody. Because like you said, I was critical of the combination of these old guys that you gave a lot of money to and these young guys, because I didn't know who you were going to keep. If you were going to keep Jabari Smith Jr., if you're going to keep Jalen Green, if it was going to work. And Ime was like, listen, just play defense and we'll all get points. Like if you play defense, we get stops and we get runouts. You're not a great shooter, but you're 6'7", you could dunk. We'll get you down there. Just defend here, dunk. Adams going to get the rebound. We're going to kick it out. We have Dylan Brooks who out here just playing like that pesky defense. And then you have our men who's kind of like floating, you know, just being able to see and read and use athleticism. I think they match up with anybody in the West as far in the playoffs.
I agree, but
I don't think I think a Warriors matchup. Steph is hard to stop, but you know that you can center your defensive attack on Steph, and Draymond's not going to suddenly drop back into 2016 Game 7 Draymond with 32-point triple-double. It's unlikely to happen. Steph still might fire off because he plays with a different amount of energy. But in a 7-game series, like we talked about, you got to beat this team 4 times.
They got playoff Jimmy, bro.
Excuse me?
They got playoff Jimmy. That was going to be my pick. That was going to be my pick, is that they don't want to see the Warriors. Because think the Warriors
Jimmy can be neutralized.
That inexperience. Like the Warriors can expose that with their championship experience. Jimmy Butler's made a couple of finals. He's been there. So just off of a won't get rattled. You know what I mean? Because like if you play Minnesota, Ant's going to go off probably. You know, you can stop him for a game or something like that, but he's going to go off. But you could probably measure up with everybody else. You know, and if you play Memphis, Ja can probably get some points on you. You know, Jaren Jackson will play some great defense, but you ain't scared of anybody else on Memphis, not even T-Rex. You know, you look at Denver, like, you know, Jokic can do anything, but you want Jokic to score. So
you want Jokic to go 44, 3, and 6.
Yeah, so I think the Rockets are the I think the Warriors are the answer. If you're the Lakers, who do you not want to see?
If I'm the Lakers, I'm at 3. So we're thinking. So in your scenario, you have Denver falling to the play-in. So that means you got Denver and the Clippers in the play-in.
Yeah.
That means you have the Warriors at 6, or you have Memphis at 6.
I have Memphis at 6. I got the Warriors at 5.
I think in that first round matchup, I like the Lakers' chances because I think the Timberwolves and the Lakers, like if the Timberwolves got the 6, I think they're like the same team. Except the Lakers have 2 stars and the Timberwolves have
they might not 3.
and then your support your best support player offensively anyway is Naz Reid for Minnesota. But we talked about this earlier. Gabe Vincent, Finney Smith, just those 2 especially, because I think Rui stays on the floor because of size and defense. He can, even if he doesn't shoot any shots, just being 6'8", 6'9" with that length, and he can defend no matter what. So even if he doesn't touch the ball at all,
right,
having him out there just to be a good defender, he's going to get his minutes.
Right.
But
well, that's what I had
Gabe
brought up
Vincent-
because they beat Houston last week, and the media was making this big deal about it. And besides the fact that Houston's 15-2 in their last 17 games, but they were making a big deal about this. But in that game, Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent, they went 12 for 24 combined from three. So if they're going to do that every night, the Lakers will win the title.
But the thing about it is that those two guys, if either one of them start off 0 for 3,
it's over.
During LeBron, like they're going back to the bench because Gabe Vincent doesn't give you the presence enough of a presence defensively to allow him to shoot a fourth shot. Unless you don't want to blow a timeout. But like if it gets back around to him, but if he's 0 for 3 or Finney-Smith is 0 for 3, then you're probably looking at a game, you're in the second quarter, it's 38-31. Like you can't afford to keep him out there. Like, yo, I need you to hit these buckets. Like you gotta go at least 2 for 4 on these threes that I'm giving you in the first half. If you're already 0 for 3, I don't know if I have 3 more in the rotation for you. So you're going to have to come out. Rui's going to have to shoot more. So that's why I said the Lakers and Minnesota are very similar, because if you're not getting those timely role player threes, then it solely relies on the two guys that you feel are your primary scorers for the entirety of the game. Minnesota scorers are just younger. So
if you're OKC, is there a team that could fall to the play-in that you don't want to play?
The 72-10 Bulls. That's the only team
that's what we doing.
Okay, that's what we doing. About. Like they're 50 games above 500.
I don't think they want to see the Warriors.
I don't think the guy who has to chase stuff around wants to do that. But other than that, these like we just talked about the NCAA tournament and how like it felt a little anticlimactic because it wasn't NBA playoffs. They try to sell this idea of, like this intrigue. But when it boils down to it, the 1 versus 8, I believe the last time, I think the Miami Heatles did it when they were in no, not the Heatles, but the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler's last one that made it to the finals. That was an anomaly, but they were a team that was kind of injured all year long. And then everyone came back towards the end of the year, and they had all their pieces together for the playoff run. It was like starting a fresh season with people coming off of, their summertime workouts and everything else. So it was like that level of like cohesion. And then you got the Golden State Warriors that knocked off Dallas back in the day. And I think before then, like Seattle in the 5-game series.
There was a Memphis over San Antonio where Zebo and those guys took out Tim Duncan. There was that one.
That one. But for the most part, you're going to get
chalk.
Yeah, you're going to get, gentleman sweeps from the 1-8 matchups.
I ain't going to lie. If I was OKC and I had to look down and see the Denver Nuggets, I might be a little, but
the Denver Nuggets with Mike Malone.
Well, luckily, they don't have to worry about that. So, but speaking of Mike Malone, I'm glad you brought that up. So, Mike Malone gone. Calvin Booth is gone. Russell Westbrook remains.
Yeah. You ever go to like a cookout or a dinner party and it's a couple there, and when you see the car pull up, you're just like, God damn it. Here they come. Here comes James and Felicia. It's going to be backhanded comments. It's going to be, animosity. It's going to be, just slick talk back and forth. I think that's what Denver had. According to Chris Broussard, I was watching First Things First. Said he made some calls, and he was basically saying that Booth and Malone didn't like each other, and they were very vocal about it. It wasn't a secret. It was kind of ingrained into the fabric of the day-to-day operation of the team, to the point where it's like, this building is toxic, and we gotta pull this the plug on both of you. You two got to go. And maybe it'll be like when Devontae Adams got traded from the Raiders to the Jets, and all of a sudden his hamstring was good to go. Maybe it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't really want to put that much effort, because people always talk about, oh, you're a professional, do your job. At the same time, these people are human. And if you come to work and you feel like you're the leader that's assigned to you,
the
leaders that are hired to lead you and are in positions to impact your playing time, so forth and so on, paychecks. If the relationship you have with them is poor because of their behavior and their behavior towards everyone, that's not a motivated place to want to be. No matter what you do, we did all this time in the military. You know what it was like when a certain NCO, CNCO officer came to your shift or wanted to sit down. He's like, I don't like, what is shit?
I was that guy when I was going through my divorce. I was that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
so, like, yeah.
I walk in the room, people was like we ain't got nothing to say. Like, we just gonna let you walk in and we'll talk again when you walk back out.
Yeah. And not at the front. I wouldn't say I was a toxic Air Force member. I just had I had it up to here a couple of different times when I was stationed at Hill, and I just verbalized it.
That's where I was too.
One time it just was very loud, and then I calmly said after that, listen, man, just don't talk to me. you just don't talk to me. I don't need anything from you. I don't need any leadership tips. I need nothing from you. I know everything that's going on here, and I can talk to him. He's a section chief. He knows that I know what's going on. I don't need you to chime on anything associated with me. So if you could do that, we'll all be fine. If you can't do that, I will remind you to continue to stay the hell out of my business. And after that, I was great. I won every award for like 2 years straight.
Well, see, what I've learned is, these coaches, when you start to remember things that they said, they're probably about to get fired. We talked about Kevin Willard a couple of weeks ago, the former head coach at Maryland, current head coach at Villanova. He was very public about the lack of NIL that was coming into the basketball program. It was all going to the football program. So we kind of knew, he's out of there the first chance he gets, because you can say that behind closed doors. You can say that within a meeting. But when you start saying it at your press conference, either you know that they're going to can you, or you got something in the bag. So over the last couple of weeks, Mike Malone has been going off. Like, he's been talking about how, hey, these guys aren't going to watch film. We got to do it for them.
Yeah.
Like they don't play no defense. Like, I'm tired of yelling at them, and they're like, hey, we tired of you yelling at us. You know what I mean? So, but the biggest thing that I took away from it was that you talk about this a lot, where your coach and your GM have to be married as far as the vision goes. So, so Mike Malone has a little bit of what I don't like about Glenn Rivers in him. He has that, you're too young, I don't want to play you mentality. I want to play vets. I just want experience on the floor at all times. Whereas Calvin Booth is saying, well, look, I'm trying to build a team. We got Jokic, but Murray ain't going to be here forever, and Porter ain't going to be here forever. So we have to start putting things in place to see what we got in case we want to move one of these guys. We know that we're not doing this haphazardly. You know what I mean? So like Michael Porter Jr., I was looking earlier, he signed that contract a few years ago, 5 years, 179, and he's a free agent in 2027. So somebody might be looking at him, and depending on what was going to happen in the playoffs this year, you might have been done with that experiment anyway. You know what I mean? Jamal Murray is hurt right now. You know what I mean? He signed that big contract, 4 years, 207, but he's not a free agent till 2029. So with his injury history, it's going to be harder to move him than it would Porter. So that was another thing that Mike Malone did. Usually when you talk to coaches and you're like, hey man, like, what's up with Jamal? Like, you'll say something like, Jamal's doing everything to play. He's anxious to get back on the court, and we can't wait to have him back. Mike Malone said, well, he's really hurt. So now I'm looking at me, 2-5. I'm looking at this like, oh, so you might not even have Jamal Murray in your first round series the way that you're talking right now.
Yeah,
so
but I remember how Kawhi reacted when the Spurs kept talking about his injury in public, and that soured a lot of people.
Right.
Because according to anyone who talks about Mike Malone, hard-nosed old school coach, to your point, I don't want to play young guys. I want vets on the floor. You win a championship and you let vets walk out the door, and then you bring me replacements that don't fit with the vets that walk out the door.
Vets, though. You traded my guy that could guard Luka. You traded my guy that's supposed to bother SGA. Yeah, I mean, not trade it, but you let him walk.
You let these guys walk. Yeah,
yeah, 2-time
KCP and Brown.
Right, and you got Christian Brown this year, who we were talking about how he leads the league in transition points, so he's coming along. Peyton Watson was supposed to be, that was what Calvin Booth said. Remember a couple of years ago, Bob Myers kind of said something along the lines of, we stay a step ahead of everybody. And so Calvin Booth made a similar type of comment like, oh, we got Peyton Watson in the wings. And you know what I mean? Problem is Peyton Watson can jump, but doesn't add much else. And then you got my guy that I like, Julian Strawther out of Gonzaga. They're playing him 21 and a half minutes this year. So that's an upgrade, but a lot of that is due to Jamal's injury, because if Jamal was there, you got to divvy up those minutes between him and Westbrook. You know what I mean? And now, saying some of these young players are probably looking at this team going, man, if I did what Russ just did, I wouldn't have played for the rest of the week.
And I guess it's and then another thing from first things first, Nick Wright was like, everybody knows who you're talking about when you say guys are soft or guys don't do this and guys don't do that. Especially when you only play 8 guys. So it's like, you're not talking about Jokic.
Meeny, miny, mo. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you're probably not publicly kind of talking about Jamal Murray. Maybe it starts at Michael Porter Jr. Like, he could be the guy you view as soft.
Talking about Aaron Gordon. We can eliminate
him. It's not Aaron Gordon, because Aaron Gordon battles and bangs every big that you play against. Christian Brown and maybe some of these young guys that he's forced to play because I don't have
any vets. Yeah,
you didn't bring in any vets, so it's like, these guys don't watch any films. Like, you're talking about 4 dudes, and they know who they are.
In the last week, they've lost a game where Jokic had a 60-point triple-double, a 40-point triple-double, in another game where he had like 32, 9, and 6 or something like that. You lost all 3 of those games. Excuse me. And you were talking about how they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. So, besides the fact that Jokic had like a little injury going on a couple of weeks ago, so he sat out. That was when I was on my cruise. He sat out, and Aaron Gordon led you to a win at Golden State. So you look at that and you're like, why would you fire the coach that is capable of that? And it's like, well, I'm just tired of you.
Yeah. Honest, like, I imagine that some reports are going to come out. It had to be something drastic. It had to be either, hey, check it out. Come up to the office. We're all going to sit down, see if we can get on the same page for the playoff start. And they sat down at this meeting. I'm just speculating. And Mike Malone and Calvin Booth sat down at this meeting, and it was World War IV. Like, yelling, no communication. It just was like, you know what? This isn't worth it.
Nicola's out here killing himself because you let KCP walk out the fucking door.
Like, well, you should play these young guys that I drafted. Those young guys suck. They don't watch film. They don't play defense. All they want to do is run and jump, and he can't shoot. How you give me a guy that's supposed to replace KCP and he can't shoot? All KCP did was
the owner sitting there like,
you're a shit GM. Well, you're a piece of shit coach. I have a championship.
Look, the owner probably sitting there like, y'all do see me here, right? Like, y'all see me sitting right here, right?
He was like, fuck you. You hired him. No, fuck you. You hired him. Like, no, fuck y'all. Y'all out.
And it's funny, right? And it's funny because the guy that put
it had to be something that abrupt. It couldn't
what,
have been like a conversation. It couldn't have been. It could not have been a rational conversation that leads you to fire your GM and your head coach 3 games before the season, with 3 games left in the season. I cannot fathom that being the case.
You know, the life of a GM is you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? Because the guy that put the championship team together is the same dude that traded Karl Anthony Towns this offseason.
Sometimes you can get a little nutty, but like I said, it had to be like I said, once again, to speculate. I know as members of the media, we can't just guess. When we speculate, it had to be a very abrupt, unprofessional, kind of visceral situation to create such an urgent.
Yeah, because you got Jokic. So like you can do that. I mean, you can talk about just flip the switch. You know what I mean? Like, hey, it's playoff time. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it was a rational thought about who was on the team. I think it was a situation they just kind of looked and said, this is so far damaged, it's not going to work. So both of you are gone. And then with those guys getting their white box and all their stuff picked up and carried out by security, it's like, now we regroup. So either we have 3 games left, we have 3 games on the schedule for the season, and we have a 7-game best of 7 series coming up for round 1. So at a minimum, we have at least 7 games left.
Yeah.
If we can turn it around, perfect. If not, we have already laid the groundwork for massive change in the organization. So I think it's you're gonna have a playoff. You're gonna have a couple playoff games. So you're gonna have a couple of home games. You're gonna have fans in the building.
Hey, listen to this word real quick. Real quick. So this is from Ashish Mathur. Hopefully I'm saying that right. From Yard Barker. And so according to the Athletic, Booth was dismayed. So when you start using words like dismayed, you know what's going on. But he was dismayed that Malone played Westbrook over Jalen Pickett down the stretch of games last week. Booth wanted Malone to use younger players that he drafted and wanted Malone to stray away from using veterans for so many minutes. Pickett is a good example of this, according to league sources. And you know what? I can't lie. Exactly right. You know, Russ is, he had time this season.
Also, Russ didn't foul him. He didn't touch him.
On that 3-point shot?
On the 3-point shot, he did not touch him. I looked at the replay, multiple angles. That dude was already falling when Russ was jumping towards him. He did not make contact with him at all.
Well, I think it comes down to what I always say when I'm watching basketball, whether it's college or the NBA. Just because you fall doesn't make it a foul.
He was already falling when he seen Russ jumping at him. Like, so he baited that foul. I can't believe the refs even called it.
Yeah, so David Alderman is going to be the interim coach here. He's got some high school experience. He was a player development guy for the T-Wolves for 5 years.
He's Rick Adelman's son. Keep going.
Definitely Rick Adelman's son. Yeah. He was an assistant for Orlando for a year, and he's been in Denver since 2017 as an assistant. Yeah. But I agree with the Jalen Pickett thing because he's been out playing Russ for quite some time now. The problem is that Russ brings a lot of other things that when things are going good, they really go well. He's getting assists, he's getting people involved, he's grabbing rebounds. But when it's not going well, right? But when it's not going well, saying he's 3 for 13. And
Russ is one of those guys that feels like eventually that rim's going to open up and this ball is going to go in.
Yeah, feast or famine. And but to your point, what you just said, energy guy, you know what I heard when you said that? Off the bench. You know what I mean? Like, you should be the next resort, not the first resort. You should be I should not be able to trust you in certain moments because, like, look, I think that a lot of Russell Westbrook's criticism is overblown. You know, I think a lot of it is hyperbolic. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is overreactionary. But going off of what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, you can't tell me that he's the best option to be on the court when the game is on the line, outside of he's been in the league for, 15 years or so. Outside of that, like,
yeah, but to Malone's point, like, hey, if that's what I need to coach the team, then get me the players I need. That way I can mix in your young players, but don't give me 6 young guys knowing that I like to have 2 veterans in my second unit.
And not even top tier talent. Because like I said, I like Julian Strawther because I like Julian Strawther. But you ain't give me Cooper Flagg. And I'm benching him. You know what I mean?
Like if you want to make a move, like you could have done a side and trade with KCP to get me like maybe
Jalen Suggs or something.
Even like I don't know like how this would work. Like a Marvin Bagley Jr. Like, give me somebody that got some years in the league but still young enough to where I can like.
Why we ain't get Dylan Brooks?
Just something along those
still
lines.
Young. He's a veteran, but he's still young.
Give me a young vet. Give me a guy that, give me a Marcus. Well, I guess Marcus Smart's kind of like having the.
Well, no, but that's a good one. If we know Jamal Murray has health issues, why don't we have something better than Russell Westbrook? Because you talk about this in football, right? Like a lot of these teams are ill-equipped because you have Lamar Jackson as your starter or something like that, and then your backup can't do anything that Lamar
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, so you have to change your whole playbook or reduce your playbook when this, whereas like, you look at somebody like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a team, but anyway, you get what I'm trying to say.
Like Baltimore should have Tyrod Taylor as their backup.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like
that should have been the
like Daniel Jones, like Daniel Jones had Danny DeVito as his backup. You know what I mean? Like, so,
so
like,
you got a 6'5", 230-pound guy, and then you got a 6 foot, 200-pound guy as his backup.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that's the thing. So, like, if you got a Jamal Murray that is often injured, just get a guy that can hit a reliable shot. It don't got to be
Malcolm Brogdon.
You ain't gonna get Steph Curry or somebody like that reinvented or anything like that. Just get somebody that I can give the ball to and trust that they're not going to shoot it off the side of the backboard.
Like the Bulls always are loaded up with guards. See if I can squeeze one of those guys off the Bulls for a couple of second-round picks.
Like, you know what? I lost KCP. Why'd you let OKC get Alex Caruso?
They got him for a song.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. So Mike Malone definitely, has a right to be upset, at the management that Calvin Booth provided. But you know how those players become vets and how they get better? You play them.
You play them.
You play them. You had 82 games. You know what I mean? You had 82 games and well, I guess 78, 79 games right now. But you had 78 or 79 games to figure all this out. So if you're still at a point that you can't figure out that Jalen Pickett is a better option in crunch time, then you're just being spiteful, because I know that you're a good enough coach and a great enough coach that you can see what Jalen Pickett brings to the table.
Yeah, but you might not want to alienate Russ. And this is something else I saw on another podcast, and I think it lends to this conversation. Buzz Williams was the coach
at Texas A&M.
Texas A&M
left to come to Maryland to replace Willard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what he said is like, you can take a team. He's like, 7 years for a coach is too long. He's like, because you could take a team from second last in their conference, get them up to second, get a little tournament success, and then the next year you're sixth, and people start looking like, but you get a little tournament run, you buy another year. But if you don't get back up, if you get back to third after you were second, sixth, and you get back to third, they're like, this is not where our standard is, because you made them better. So it's
You
like you
made
stay
me
there too
believe we
long.
were better.
So then he's like, then I gotta leave. So then I go and I get a team that's once again bottom of the conference. I get them back up to 4 or 5,
Brent cycle
and
repeat.
the cycle repeat. And so I think their championship success, because they had a couple of years where Jokic won the MVP, didn't make it to the finals. Then they had that run, and then Miami had their miracle run through the East, to where Miami wasn't the best team all season out of the East that year where they made it to the finals. But what it did was, I mean, it was a gentleman's sweep, gave them the championship, gave them legitimacy, and I think a lot of coaches were like, all right, cool. The player got the monkey off his back. I got the monkey off my back. Now work with me. But instead, a lot of GMs start thinking like, look at this team I put together. Look what I can do. Or you replace the other GM, like, look how I'm going to improve this championship roster. And then it becomes a me thing. That's why I think they got rid of the coach and the GM. The coach is probably fed up. And the GM like, listen, you're making this about you. You're making it about you. You can both leave. But I think Malone's going to bounce back on his feet, because some other teams are going to fire coaches abruptly. As we look at the NBA standings, I can see that coach in Dallas being pretty upset that you let his best player go. He might not want that job anymore.
Why are you so disrespectful?
I'm talking about Jason Kidd.
I know that coach in Dallas.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it like that, just make it just like you really drive it home, like that coach in Dallas. Nah, you know how he feels. You know what I mean?
What up, Mike?
The Suns could more than likely fire their coach because they got a young billionaire owner. I'm not sure what the Jazz situation is. I don't know if they're ready.
No, the Jazz are fine. They got Will Hardy. They're fine. He's they're going to take off once they get players. He's respected.
And we know how the Hawks, they do.
What about Willie Green?
Crazy business.
What about Willie Green down in New Orleans? Yeah.
Well, New Orleans is, if I'm Mike Malone, is uncertain because I don't know the Zion situation.
And then you got to figure out what the Spurs are going to do.
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy who replaces the legend now.
Once
somebody else is come in there and fail real quick.
What are the Kings going to do? Are the Kings going to keep Doug Christie, or are they going to look for another coach?
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind being out west. Coach a few more games against Denver.
Memphis needs a new coach.
Oh no, he can't. He's not going to go to the Kings because that dude already fired him.
Oh yeah. He already worked for the Kings. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't really talking about Mike Malone. I'm just looking at teams that could fire their coach.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because he made that statement out loud when Mike Brown got fired. He was
maybe the Bulls. What you think, Mike? Maybe the Bulls.
Donovan came out in support of him.
Let's see. Then you got. That might be about it. Oh, maybe I don't know. Like, does Milwaukee pull the? Come on, Mike. Don't start this.
Stay focused, Mike.
Does Milwaukee decide to get off of Glenn?
I don't know if you have enough I don't know if you can change out the coach and keep your star.
Well, I think that's the point because, as Mike just said, saying I don't know if Giannis is going to the Bulls or not, but I don't know if I see Giannis starting.
And Milwaukee pretty close.
I don't know if I see Giannis starting the season in Milwaukee next year, or I damn sure don't necessarily see him finishing the season in Milwaukee.
I can't imagine him starting it with a new coach.
Yeah. So, then, hey, man, look. You got to go look at those rosters post Timmy, too. You know what I'm saying? Because they lost Kawhi.
Look at the rosters with Timmy.
So they lost. Even with Wemby, they ain't got nothing else on the team besides Wemby until this year.
Not that good. He's just tall.
I ain't gonna say all that now. But
if he was 6'5", he'd be a regular basketball player.
But that's the thing is that with a coach like Mike Malone, I think that he just expects certain things out of his players, and I think that with these, I don't want to get into that conversation, but with these new school people. What I'm saying? They don't handle criticism very well. You know what I mean? And it's not, and I get told all the time, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. So if I would have told you that you sucked without saying that you sucked, it would have been better. Castle is good, but he's a rookie. And, Vassell shoots too damn much and they freeze Wemby out. That's why they don't do nothing, because they don't give Wemby the ball enough.
Yeah, but like I said, I understand the generational gap. I talked about this before.
I mean, he's young though. He's only 53.
Yeah, when I retrained in 2014, I was on a Shepherd, Wichita Falls, Texas, and the training squadron leadership called all like prior service like retrainees into like a conference room, and they were talking to us about the new age airmen and how you have to talk to them and like different aspects of leadership that might not have been what we were used to consider, because at 2014 I had been in 14 years, so there's a couple like guard guys that a little older. So like they literally brought us in and say, hey, these new airmen aren't like the airmen when you were airmen. I'm like, why am I getting this briefing? I am a student. I'm not here to be raising these airmen. I'm here to go to class, get this per diem, and go to McGuire. Like that's it. Like that's all I'm here for. I'm not here to be a mentor. And obviously you're gonna end up being one. But it was like that was a real conversation. They sat us down. Like I said, that was 10, 11 years ago. So
Right.
Getting these coaches that are closer to 40 that can kind of speak the language, or they're in tune with the technology, understand the importance of, like, for instance, my dad his birthday is tomorrow, 68. I don't think he could coach his grandson's high school basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's probably some 68-year-old coaches who are still coaching legends, but it's like his like, say they go on a road, like you're traveling, you have like a young team and they're traveling, and guys have a suitcase with a gaming laptop in it, and you're a coach, like, why the hell are you bringing a laptop on the road? Like, we're gonna be playing this game. Like, oh, I'm playing this new game. A 41-year-old coach might understand why this 22-year-old player is traveling with a separate suitcase for his gaming laptop and not
Right.
give him shit for it. Whereas
And
like
that was the
an
point.
old school 55-year-old coach is like, you need to be fucking watching film and not playing that goddamn game all night.
And that was the point. And that was the point that I was trying to, or not trying to make, but that was what I was getting at with Will Hardy out in Utah. He's only 37 and he came through the Celtics. You got Danny Ainge out there. So he's going to get every opportunity to fail. You know what I mean? If he fails, it's not going to be because he didn't get what he needed. You know what I mean? I'll put it like that. So Will Hardy, you got Charles Lee down in Charlotte, but you had Brandon Miller hurt half the year. Mark Williams was gone half the year, and then in his feelings when he couldn't get to LA. And then LaMelo, we all know that he does nothing but miss games. And, so a lot of these teams got decisions to make. But I also think that this new luxury tax stuff, like this new apron and all that kind of stuff, it's going to force a lot of teams' hands, because this has been a wild season. Think about this. Like, you've already got those two coaches that got fired in the last week. You had Luka get traded. You know what I mean? And now you come into this offseason, Memphis has got to give Jaren Jackson $345 million. So you might have to come off Ja. You know what I mean? Like, Risha Shea is starting
you might have to come off Jared Jackson.
Maybe, but Risha Shea is starting to click. You know what I mean? And you got Dyson Daniels down there in the Defensive Player of the Year race, maybe even in the Most Improved Award race. You know what I mean? And you don't got room for Trey. Because by the time Risha Shea hits the point for his rookie extension,
which is probably end of next season,
like,
that's when the conversation starts.
That's when the conversation starts. But by the time it kicks in, Trey's already, probably 33, 34 by then. You know what I mean? So like, these teams
the economy kind of going the way it is. A lot of these owners don't have that Walmart money. A lot of their money is kind of tied up in stock value and like different things of that nature. So there's gonna be a lot of guys that are like, listen, I don't know, because eventually, what we got? So we had Jalen Brown signed for what,
It was like
314,
312 or something, and then Tatum
and then
350
Tatum
right behind him or something like that.
335, 350, somewhere in
Yeah.
that range.
Yeah, so now you're
So,
gonna probably have to come off Drew Holiday or, like Al Horford will probably retire. You're gonna have to come off stuff.
but I'm talking about like these other teams that are going to sign their guys to max deal. So, like, I mean, what does Dallas give AD if his deal, like, if they want to extend him? What does Zion get? Wemby's going to start talking his extension at the end of this year.
Yeah, so
Giannis, if he stays in Milwaukee,
Anthony Davis right now is on a 3-year 186. And it expires in 2028.
so Paolo
That's what I'm
Banchero down
saying.
in
These
Orlando,
teams
a
are
lot of these
in.
teams are going to be making these decisions. Going to be like,
Yeah, because that apron, you don't want to get caught up in that apron and lose draft picks down the road, especially if you're not winning. It's one of those
unless
things,
they all
right?
have like some MIT economics grads working on a plan that's an algorithm that's going to be like, listen, this is how we can move the money to ensure that this happens. Because someone's going to figure it out. Like the same with NFL salary.
It was, it was ring culture was just fans. You know what I mean? It was just fans. But now ring culture is going to go into these front offices. Like, if I'm not winning, why am I forking out this money and potentially going to get penalized? Like, we already got the
giving a
luxury
guy
tax.
5 years, 345, and
Like, how different does Philadelphia?
wins.
How different does Philadelphia look next year? You know what I mean? Like, you can't bring Paul George back, can you? Unless nobody takes him.
I don't know how you get out of that deal.
You know what I
They
mean?
must sound like the greatest team friendly. I don't know how you get out of it. I thought it was a 4-year, 200.
Then they just paid Maxey. They extended Embiid. You know what I mean?
You need to come off that.
But you're probably going to end up with a top 5 pick too. You know what I mean? So, like, I guess it's like you got 2 years to figure out what you're doing, and then Embiid's going to be out of there if he's, I don't know. Like, a lot of these teams got decisions to make, because I mean, Bradley Beal, right? No trade clause, but Durant ain't going to be there next year. So,
right now, cap space for the Philadelphia 76ers is negative 29 million.
Yeah, look at them Brooklyn Nets. You know what I'm saying? Look at them Brooklyn Nets. You know what I'm saying? Holler back, Giannis.
So, yeah, if you talk about Philly, they have $100 million base salary for Paul and Embiid.
And that's not
another 35 for Maxey,
and
then everybody else is under 10.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if Embiid's gonna, like, when he's coming back. It probably won't be at the start of the season, I'm imagining. So, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of teams out here. Because, I mean, even when you look at a team like, say,
Phoenix has the worst.
But think about Minnesota for a second, right?
Negative $87 million.
Damn. But think about Minnesota for a second, right? You're stuck because you gave up so much to get Gobert. So just imagine Minnesota takes a first round exit this year, or they end up in the play-in. You can't even move off of Gobert, really. Not even because nobody will take him, but because you can't trade him after all you gave up to get him.
Real quick, if you are a free agent, you want to go and negotiate with Phoenix. Like I just was talking about the 76ers. 76ers had like 6 dudes making $700,000 or less. Phoenix doesn't have one dude making less than 1.5 million. Like Bol makes $2.4 million. So who else you talking about was in a terrible situation money wise?
I would imagine Milwaukee is.
Let's check them out real quick.
Because you got Giannis, you got Dame, and his money about to start getting ridiculous as he gets older.
Oh, the first apron and the second apron for Phoenix was 36 million and then 25 million. Cap space for Milwaukee negative 55 million.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying
Giannis, Dame.
Giannis, Dame,
They just got
Kuzma, Brook
Kuzma.
Lopez,
Mhm.
Portis. They're all getting 12 million and up. So
Yeah,
Portis,
Portis should be back in their next game, I believe,
Connington's getting
from his
9.
25-game suspension.
Kevin Porter Jr. is getting 2.2.
Let's see. Yeah,
So yeah, it's a
it's
lot
rough
of
out here in
teams.
these streets, man. It's rough.
Brooklyn should be in a good situation. Check out Charlotte, see how bad their situation is.
Well, Charlotte should only be paying LaMelo.
Yeah, they're paying LaMelo, but they're paying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys double figures.
Yeah, but I think it's small double figures because Miller hasn't come up on his extension yet.
Yeah,
You know,
so
Williams
11,
hasn't come up on his
12,
extension.
13, 18, 27, and 35.
They're probably paying Grant Williams.
Yeah, Grant's getting 13. So that's a favorable deal.
Yeah.
And also it's all the nuance of like who's getting what, who like when your salary kicks in.
Yeah.
Boston's paying a lot of money, but all
But
their
they're
role
winning,
players
so
are
you're
hitting.
good with that. You know what I mean? But after this year, you know, I'm sure Pritchard going to want some money. You know, like I said, Drew Holiday is going to be another year older. You know, so you probably got to move off of him too. Horford probably retires. You got to look at Porzingis and decide, you know, hopefully he can make it through the playoffs without injury.
The Bulls are overpaying their entire team.
Oh yeah, the Bulls are awful with it. Like they were paying Levine too to start the season.
Check it out. The Bulls, and this is not even like they're paying Ball's getting 21, Vucevic 20, Patrick Willis 18, Patrick Williams 18, Kevin Horter 16, Zach Collins 16, Kobe White 12, Trey Jones 9, Jalen Smith 8, Josh Giddey 8, Dusamu 7, Jevin Carter 6.5.
And Kobe White is a free agent after next season. So, you know what I'm saying? What he's doing this year.
Paid.
So what he's doing this year, he's going to want more money too. They might have to move off of him unless they decide that he's the future. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's a tough road to hoe, if you will. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, somebody got to figure it out. I'm glad it ain't me.
Yeah, so if I'm Mike Malone, like you have to look at all that because like some of this apron money, especially for the Suns, I think Phoenix is a dope city. I think basketball players like Phoenix.
Fourth biggest city in the country, or
it's a hub out west as far as like flights. So you're flying in and out, access to Cali, access to Vegas. And like I said, just overall, just a dope city. It's kind of isolated, you know, like that section of Arizona. That's their saving grace, is that it's a dope environment. Because if Utah was in the situation that Phoenix is in, and you got to like try to restock, it's gonna be tough.
They got to get Beal out of there.
You got to buy your big three.
Yeah, they got to get Beal.
Utah just knows that that's not.
They got to get Beal to waive that no trade.
But who is he going to go? Because I heard a trade proposal, but we saw the Jokic one in the group chat, which is
maybe you could talk to Brooklyn. Put Bradley Beal next to Giannis.
So you think Giannis at Brooklyn is a real plan? But
no, I don't know if it'll happen, but I think that they got enough money to say, "Hey, Giannis, who do you want to play with?" You know, they can do that OKC or Clipper thing where when they got Kawhi and Kawhi was like, I want Paul George. They gave up a shit ton, they ended up, giving up SGA and some picks, but Brooklyn's got enough money to where they can go to Giannis and say, who do you want to play with? You make the team. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have a top 5 pick more than likely. You know what I'm saying? If all things go right, you know what I'm saying? We can get either a Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper to run the offense, to be our point guard. You know what I'm saying? That's solved. You know what I'm saying? Who do you want to play with?
Do we get Kevin Durant in Denver?
No.
And a Michael Porter Jr. deal?
I think Kevin Durant is either going to Dallas or Minnesota.
Yeah, because Phoenix is going to be over a barrel.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to get anything. I mean, he's 36, so this ain't 26-year-old KD, but he's still fifth in the league in scoring right now. You know what I mean? You're not going to get anything that nears equal value anyway. So,
correct.
So just take the best deal. That's the problem, is that these players have the power to say, if I go there, I won't resign. Or if I'm a team and I want Kevin Durant, fuck you. You 36, retired in.
Yeah. 36
you know what I'm saying? Like,
class.
I don't care what you want. Retire. If you want, you're going to be here for these 2 years, and then you can ride off into the sunset for all I care. Not my problem. You know what I'm saying? But teams don't take chances like that. You know what I'm saying? These players say, I ain't going to resign there. I ain't going to resign there. That's what happened with Dame. You know what I'm saying? Like, or not Dame. That was what Portland did, because Dame wanted Miami, and Portland was like, oh, that's cool. Like, you can go to Milwaukee. But a lot of other teams don't do that, because, there's that after effect of later down the road, certain players might avoid you because, I saw how they did him. And
like I said, that's part of the business.
And I want to see what Miami does now. Like, our team's going to look at Miami and say, all right, so you traded D Wade that time.
Yeah.
You let LeBron go and didn't want him to get his cookies. And then, and now you got Jimmy Butler. You alienated him, and basically
Heat culture they're gonna have to build their team back from the ground up. They just got to get some size on the perimeter. I think Duncan Robinson and Tyler
Hero's
Hero
been balling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think combined they weigh about 212. So they're probably gonna get some size on the. I don't think they're gonna look for a free agent. I think they're gonna just use the expertise they have of their coach and the moxie of their president and GM.
But hey, quiet as kept. Bulls and Heat 7-3 in their last 10. So, and see, y'all, Sports Reports is ordered. We talk about all the teams. You know what I'm saying? So, check us out on Friday. We'll be back with more around the association and more things going on in the sports world. You know what I'm saying? Do me a couple of favors out there. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Quench your thirst with a liquid death. Check out the One Mic podcast on Mondays and Thursdays at noon Eastern. Check out the Cups in the Gang, a.k.a. the Hot Box. We love you. And just in case you forgot, don't bring feelings to a fat fight.
Don't do it.
He is Mr. Logic. I am 2-5. Be good.